Hi, Eimer. How are you?
Hi Joey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm sure you're getting this a lot this season, but I love Banshees so much. It's so
Oh,
I watched it a couple of months ago, and then I was refreshing myself this week when I was doing some prep, and it's just like it's so good. It's just sort of like one of those things where you sort of can't explain. It's just like the writing's great, the acting's great. It's just all wonderful. And I love what you do with lots of textures and colors in this. So thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
oh no,
Um,
thank you. Thank you.
yeah. I wanted to ask the first time that we see Colin's character and Brendan's character, um, I notice we see a little bit of red peeking out of Colin's shirt, and we see blue on Brendan. And I was curious if you wanted to sort of establish for these two men specifically, establish colors for them. I sort of like how, for the most part, these two gentlemen aren't wearing a lot of uh, colors that are just the colors. It feels like there's a lot of black, like hiding the colors. So I was curious for them first, in terms of establishing color palette. What can you sort of talk to me about that?
Okay, so I mean, it's kind of interesting, really, because you kind of mentioned, color kind of peeping out from black or whatever. And
Hmm.
I love the fact that when people talk about the costumes, they say, "Oh, and I love the colors and
Hmm.
Siobhan's coats and the shirts and the knitwear and all of that." But what is really interesting is that if I, had a rail of the costumes behind me,
Hmm.
you'd probably think, oh God, there's a lot of black and dark browns there
Hmm.
as well. So it's, there's kind of two things going on there. Martin, when he spoke to me about the costumes, he said that he really wanted to be able to pick the characters out when they're walking through the landscape. So there's a lot
Mm.
of we
Right.
see Brendan, when Colin's in the house and he looks out the window and he sees Brendan disappearing
Hmm.
into the distance, and Ireland is very green, so it was very important that
Breaking
you have
news,
this.
yes.
Yeah, breaking news. Breaking news. And it was important, really important for Martin that we could pick out the characters in the landscape. And the one thing he was specific about was that he wanted these dark silhouettes.
Mm.
And I thought, okay, you can have your dark silhouettes, but I'm going to get my color and
Yeah.
texture as well. So there was kind of a little bit of interplay between what Martin wanted, and I completely respected, and a slightly kind of a Western feel and all of that,
Hmm.
to me wanting to create, through the costumes to really kind of bring these characters to life in a very kind of three-dimensional way, and to give
Hmm.
them a warmth when needed and texture when needed. That when you would see Pádraic Colin's character, you'd say, "Oh, he's so cute," or whatever. Colin's cute. Breaking
I feel
news.
like I say that no matter what. Yeah, it's just like,
I
oh,
know.
yeah.
I know. But yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, I mean, I love using color, and if you think about, which I certainly did when Martin said, we're going to be filming on the Iron Islands and Achill
Hmm.
Island. I'm like, ugh, it's green and it's rock. And it's, we've got the sea, and the sea on a good day is blue, and on a rainy day it's gray. So, I really wanted to have a color. It wasn't even so much an individual kind of color palette. It was this kind of color palette and a tonality that
Hmm.
would work across all the characters, so that there's a kind of a tone within
Mm.
all the costumes that is connecting them and separating them all at the same time. So you've got
Okay.
this interplay. You've got this. Are you a costume student for the day now? So
Yeah,
you've got
I'm taking various notes. Yes.
captive audience. No, so you have this. Um, it's really important with period film that you're creating a tonal palette as well,
Mhm.
so that there's like the red jumper you're wearing. Thank you for wearing that. You know that there's you know that when you use when you use a certain red, there's a blue within the same kind of a cool palette that is
Right.
going to work with that red. But then you throw in the kind of the colors that Brendan, there's kind of a nutmeg, which is really rich, and you know, Mark Tilsey, the production designer, you know, he was kind of referencing kind of you know, like the great mass like Vermeer and stuff like that. So I'm kind of thinking, you know, well, I can definitely use those kind of ochres and things there with Brendan as well. Are you happy you asked that question?
No, no. Hey, I always joke that I will admit I have no style whatsoever. But I love speaking to costume designers, because I mean maybe it's because I was a theater student, so it was sort of like building the character with like you know, clothes and what a character decides to put on their body. I will admit that when I was getting dressed this morning and I knew I was talking to you and I was thinking of the colors of the film. This was an accident, really, but I did think about the red shirt that Colin Farrell wears like midway through the movie, because I was going to wear a brownish sweater, sort of nutmeggy, that, and then I actually thought to myself, like, no, I'm feeling a little bit more Auric, a little bit more Colin Farrell today, so I wore this one instead.
You see, and
Some,
I knew that, you
yes.
know, I could tell. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Oh goodness. Okay. I guess if I may ask about a couple specific characters, if that's okay.
Mhm.
Um, Barry Keoghan, Dominic. First of all, just Barry Keoghan in this movie is just, he's, who knew? I didn't know that he's a great actor, and I this movie, his performance really broke my heart. And
Yeah.
I love his hat that he wears. I want that hat.
Okay.
And I can give you a list of things that I
Okay.
want. But I was really struck by like the wornness and the distressed nature of his clothes. And I was curious because he does feel very much like an outsider looking in, trying to like poke his way into a lot of situations, whether it is a conversation with Colin or a conversation with Carrie. I was curious what kind of like character decisions you wanted to put forth with his clothing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that with Barry, in a way, he's kind of you know, he's the one character, I suppose with Siobhan as well, that you can kind of read straight away what's going on.
Mm,
So, you know, he does look he's quite careworn, and he looks you know, you can tell straight away he's unkempt, unloved. You know, he has that kind of I know. He is heartbreaking in it.
yeah.
And, you know, I worked on it, I read it, and when I watched the film, you know, he's just, his performance is absolutely stunning.
Hmm.
Um, and, you know, he has a father, but really he's the orphan character. You know, he's wandering around this tiny island trying to find somebody to love him, you know, trying,
Yeah.
and it's just so sad. So it is that he wears practically the same thing all the time. He has one costume that we maybe just sometimes see the shirt and the jumper, but it's all, you know, he's either sleeping in the what he's wearing at night, or else he's just picking it up and putting the same thing on
Hmm.
day in day out, you know. So for me, his costume, because it's kind of the one costume, you know, what it is kind of what you see is what you get. It's just the
Yeah.
unlovedness of it, and it's just the jacket's a bit too small, you know, it's all just he's
Yeah.
like
Like, yeah.
yeah, you know, it's a little bit tight, so he's kind of having to hunch against the cold and the wind. The jacket doesn't look like it's going to give you much protection
Hmm.
against a storm coming in off the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah.
you know, so you're all the time kind of looking at him going, oh God, I wonder if I met him, would I be afraid of him, or would I be the person who stops and has a chat with him? And, you
I
know,
yeah, like I kept thinking about when you say like sleeping in his clothes, and it's just like I can just see him just like sitting in a chair and be like, all right, let me just take off the hat because that's his like maybe his nightly ritual for getting ready for bed is just taking off his hat.
yeah,
Um yeah, okay. Um yeah, I kept looking at all the little like I was like, oh, there's a hole there. There's a
yeah,
the way that the jacket does fit, it does I was like, you're buying another jacket is either not feasible or not on your mind at all. You're just doing what you need to do in your daily life. Um I wanted to ask about Mrs. McCormick.
oh, thank you.
Yeah, she is a character. I'm glad that you said like seeing them from a distance because I feel like just the shape of her, she sort of looks like almost like an upside down almond almost.
Yeah, yeah,
And I love that she um is in a lot of black. I like
mm,
how she's sort of this sort of foreboding presence. If you would see from if I saw that from a distance, I'd be like, oh my God, who is that? Let me just go the other direction.
yeah,
And I like how I think in there's one scene we see some like red detail on the inside of
yeah.
that, but how do you sort of I don't want to say how do you dress a character like that, but I sort of loved seeing the shape of her every time she popped up.
Yeah, and I think with period costume, you know, I think the silhouette is so important.
Hmm.
Whether you're doing a Victorian drama or 1920s drama or whatever. So I knew that with Mrs. McCormick again, um, I don't know, do you remember the scene at the top, the cliff top where Pádraic is waving goodbye to Siobhan,
Hmm.
and you
Yes.
see the silhouette in the distance. Like, I remember afterwards, my brother-in-law saying to me, was that the Banshee? And I was like, well, who the hell do you think it was? Of course it was a Banshee. you know, so she had to be immediately recognizable. Just,
Oh, she is. Yes.
yes, it's the silhouette, and she's going around with that crook, that stick as well.
Hmm.
Um, and so a lot of the women in the west of Ireland at the time, their petticoats, their skirts, some of them, I found these amazing photographs where they would like wear an old petticoat, an old skirt, like a shawl
Oh,
on top
okay.
of their heads. So this is like a little play on that. So if you look at the film for a third time,
Oh,
okay.
I'm sure it'll happen. Yes.
No, but I mean, if you look, if you see, a photograph of Mrs. McCormick, there's a beautiful kind of a woven band on the shawl, which is it's a belt that was worn at the time in the west of Ireland that really just people stopped wearing in the um, 1970s. And the men wore it around. The women wove them,
Mhm.
and the men wore them around their pants because they didn't have suspenders, braces.
Mhm.
So this was a belt, and sometimes they'd wear kind of doubled around. But so I put they still make these on the Aran Islands, but more kind of for the tourist trade. But there was a woman there who would still make traditional ones. So I got, she made some beautiful ones for us. So we've got that on the edge of the her petticoat shawl, but the
Mm.
fabric that we used is it's an Irish linen, but it's black on one side and it's red on the inside. So we
Okay.
had that woven especially. So
Oh.
so you do catch bits of the red sometimes,
Hmm.
but for her it is all about the silhouette. It's this
Yeah.
thin old lady who, when you see, it's like Porrick's reaction when she appears from behind the wall. you know, so people you have to have that gut reaction that he has. Oh, I didn't see you there.
Yeah.
You have to kind of jump in your skin every time you see her. So she does look. It's like a West of Ireland kind of a witch
Hmm.
type character that there's a kind of a supernatural kind of a quality to her, and she just scares the bejesus out of you every time
Yeah.
you see her, you
There
know?
was like a very, spectery
Yeah.
sort of I always feel like she would be the character who you're having your worst moment of your entire life, and then as soon as that interaction is over, you slightly look this way, and there she is. It's
Yeah,
just like, of course
exactly.
you're there. Like,
And
oh
she's saying, I told you
yeah,
many years ago, I told you, don't do
of course.
that. Yeah,
Oh wow.
that's her.
Um, I wanted to ask about this may sound silly, but I wanted to ask about like the sort of like the art of layering, just because it's obviously a very practical thing. We spend a lot of time outside.
Yeah.
And I'm a sucker when it's cold. I'll put on like five different things in order to stay warm. But I wanted to know maybe um when you're not looking at it from like a practical point of view, what is something that you can do to sort of differentiate character in that way, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I'm sure a lot of costume designers would agree, with differentiating characters, um, especially when it comes to male characters, is always um, tricky. Okay,
Hmm.
so for Banshees, we're talking about this tiny island, 3 miles by 5 miles, whatever, where you've got a bunch of grumpy old men or grumpy middle-aged men, dissatisfied with their lives or whatever, all living within this tiny geographical area. Their wives or sisters or whatever are probably making their clothes at home.
Hmm.
They could all be wearing the same thing. And the Aran Islands, which is the real islands that maybe Inisherin is fictitiously bouncing off, people did wear, the men, it was almost a uniform that they
Mm,
wore. So we didn't want that,
right.
okay?
Okay.
And I spoke to Martin about that. I was saying, oh, da 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 da. And he said, no, come on, we don't want that. I said, okay, great. So then how do you differentiate between the male characters? So it's you know, it is all the subtleties. So
Hmm.
with Pádraic, and I was talking about this yesterday to somebody, like with Pádraic, it's like if you read the script and you could say, oh, okay, he's just some old farmer
Yeah.
guy, you know, uh, poor background, whatever. But he's living with his sister. His parents have died. His sister is looking after him.
Hmm.
She's taking care of him. So it's kind of a little bit surprising when you do see him. He's quite neat,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
I see that he's walking out the door in the morning and she's buttoning up his shirt
Hmm.
and she's kind of straightening his jacket and dusting off his, shoulders and
Yeah.
fixing his hair and then sending him off on, okay, you can go down to Mrs. O'Riordan's shop now and get the money
Hmm.
for the milk.
You're
But you're
ready.
not, you have to have some respect or whatever. And then with Colm, Sonny, Larry, with Brendan's character, um, I didn't want to kind of when you go into the house and there's the puppets and the masks and all of that, I didn't want to kind of fall into something where he starts to look kind of folkloric or something.
Right. Okay.
I wanted him to have a real kind of solidity to what he was wearing. But we did have fun with some of the colors, and he's got a lot of kind of textures with the corduroy and the patterning on the back of the waistcoats and all of that, because there's a lot of stuff that's happening as well in the shadows, in the pub, which is very kind of dimly lit, like
Right.
gas lights or whatever, and it's quite dark. So, kind of using textures and some kind of subtle patterning there
Hmm.
really kind of helps that they're just not these black blobs with
Yeah.
um,
I
so
had actually thought, yeah, I was like, yeah, it has to be really hard because there was a lot of dark scenes.
yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
there is, all the interiors are really quite dark, and they're, even in daylight you've got these small windows, so there's a small amount of light coming in, it's the
Mm.
all of that. So it was in, and then Brent Colm Sonny Larry, he has that long coat as well,
Yeah.
which it is a kind of a Western feel
Hmm.
to it, and I mean the
Oh yeah.
American West, not West of Ireland, and his hat as well. That it's the kind of the you know that lone figure, the he needed to be apart from everybody else on the island. Siobhan is as well. Siobhan is
Hmm.
other also, she's looking to the mainland, and you know her
Mm.
clothing is contemporary of the time, but with kind of nods to the west of Ireland and all of that. So you know they don't have a huge wardrobe. That's
Right.
harder.
Yeah.
That's harder because you're kind of everything has everything is kind of everything is kind of loaded. Like we made everything for the cast,
Yeah.
so you're
I read
all
that. That blew
the
my
time,
mind. Yeah.
yeah, you're all the time thinking, what would he wear? Why would he wear that? Where is he getting it? What color would he use? Why, da 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 da. And then, with Colm, Sonny Larry, um, when you go into the house, you realize that, what's happening? Where's he getting all this stuff from?
Hmm.
And I think that it's people coming to the island, um,
Oh, okay.
like it's because that did happen in Ireland at the time. There were a lot of scholars coming, especially from
Hmm.
the UK, coming and collecting stories and collecting music. And I feel that he was building
Okay.
up a relationship with these people, and they were sending him things.
Oh, that's so interesting. Okay.
Which is where his kind of disquiet is coming from as well, because he's kind of being introduced to this other world,
Hmm.
outside world, while never really leaving the island, you know?
Mm.
So it's somebody who's happy with what they have, and then
Hmm.
suddenly they start oh, did you hear about the mainland? This is what's happening over there. Did you hear about
Yeah.
New York? It's like if you're living in Dublin and somebody says, have you been to New York? You know,
Okay. That's
so um and I think that's why, we were able to give him those kind of slightly bolder colors with the shirts and that. But
hmm.
I didn't want it to be kind of a cliche that um I didn't want it to be foppish, or
Yeah.
you know start giving him bow ties or pretentious or anything like that. He's all the time he's stoic,
Hmm.
and that's why people are drawn to him as well. He's this kind of, you
Oh
know,
yeah. You
imbues this kind of aura.
yeah. Yeah, I feel like if yeah, that oh yeah, I feel like if you would give him like a twee-ish detail,
Oh,
like a bow tie, everybody
oh, it would
that
just
would
kill it.
it
Yeah,
would yeah, it would just be like
yeah,
the emotion would be sort of like sucked out of it. Yeah, okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's like a serious I don't want to say seriousness to it, but there's a I don't know,
There is.
there's like a melancholy, you know, sturdiness to the character that I feel like actually really comes through with the costuming. Like there's a I don't know, I sort of can't describe it. I'm not really articulating it very well, but there's I keep imagining Colin Farrell with a bunch of bow ties. That makes me laugh.
Oh no,
Um
sorry.
um I did want to say that there was an image from the movie that I really love that's not necessarily costume related, but it kind of is when it's near the beginning when we see an exterior shot of Pádraic and Siobhan's house, and we see the clothesline,
Yeah,
and it's the burst of color in that.
yeah,
I loved that, and I really when I rewatched it, I was just like, that belongs in Siobhan's closet. That's in Siobhan's closet.
yeah,
I think there's
yeah.
like a greenish
Yes,
shirt or something that sort of mimics the coat, which I'm sure everybody's talking about the coat.
yeah,
Um, but that's something that I also felt like the clothes are not even on their body, but I can see how the characters would wear them, even though they're like swinging on a clothesline.
yeah.
Um, Okay. Um, I guess one last question before I let you go is my favorite thing to ask costumers is if you could steal something from your own designs, what would it be? I've already given myself away. I want that red shirt that Colin wears. I love the long, I guess collar points
Sure.
to it. I want Dominic's hat. I mean, I would even take Mrs. McCormick's um outfit to make a statement. I don't know. It would just to scare my friends. So,
Okay.
what would you take from Banshees of Inisherin for yourself?
Well, I really loved Brendan's hat. I'm just thinking
Mm.
this I and I this is not planned, just when you asked me. Okay. Like that was this I just have this at home. This was the
Oh,
first
wow.
version
Okay.
of the hat, you know? So we had
Yeah,
it made and like I love that.
that's great.
So that was the first one. And I think or that's probably like this I think we just had that was the double of it. And it's
Mm.
made I just love with all the costumes the way all the breakdown as well that was done on them.
Mm.
So, you know, I that's one of my favorite processes, the aging. And, like that's made brand new. And then it's got all this kind of layers of
Mm.
grease
Mm.
and dirt. And I'm touching it now, but, it's all paint and, all of that. I just think that that's amazing. And I think that that's part of what really, I think made the costumes work as well is that,
Mm.
of course, they're all made new because it's all designed specifically and all of that. But then there's this whole process that is happening, that never happens when you go into a store and buy something.
Yeah.
You buy something and it's new, but in a film, you make something, it's new, and then you age it. There's that third
Mhm.
process that happens. So I think anything and it's like
Wow.
with Barry's costume, but even with Siobhan's, everything, like if you can see, and the kind of purple dress that she wears, the
Uh-huh.
linen
Yeah.
dress, I love, I just loved looking at that because that was a lovely kind of crisp linen when we bought it. But by the time it was finished going through the whole kind of breakdown process, it's got lovely aging and very
Mhm.
subtle. Like it looks cared for and neat and tidy and all of that, but it's
Mm.
it's not new. It's something that she wears. You can tell that it's something that she wears a lot, but that she takes care of it because that's the kind
Mm.
of person that she is. So that's what I love. I I do like this hat, you know.
I would wear that all the time. I always joke that there's like nobody wears hats anymore.
I know.
Oh, people
Yeah.
should. I feel like as soon as you put that on, I was like, "Ooh, who is she?" Gives me some mystery to it. I want to talk to her. Um, okay. Well, thank you so much for your time, Emer. I just love the movie so much. So thank you for letting
Oh,
me
that's
gush at you
fantastic.
and I think the textures and the color, sort of like what I said at the beginning, I was just sort of really drawn in, and I feel like it really helps me want to really understand who these characters are and what's going on. And I feel like, yeah, that's all.
Well, I'm so glad that you understood all of that, and it's really lovely talking to you. It's
Yeah,
a
you too. Yeah, well, good luck to you
get
this
it.
season,
So
and yeah,
thank
good
you.
luck and have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
You too. Thank you so much.